All right, here we are, episode 3, Winging It. I'm here with Sally, and we are talking about The West Wing.
Hooray, a proportional response. So excited.
Episode 3. We're very excited for a proportional response.
Yeah. I tried to actually Google because to me it sounds like it should be a proportionate response, but but apparently it's correct either way. So there's a good fact for you. Proportional and proportionate are almost entirely interchangeable.
Whew. Man, I'm glad that you looked that up for us because I didn't sleep well last night and I couldn't exactly put my finger on why, but I think I will sleep better tonight knowing that.
Hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to do that gritty grammar research work.
Well, I liked it because even in this episode there were some nods to grammar. But let's talk through what kind of happens in this episode. Let's do a quick recap. Let's see. It opens with Josh and Donna, which I think is already starting the episode off on a good foot, I would say.
Absolutely.
Josh shows up and he wants to know why he's in trouble with CJ, and Donna keeps talking about wanting a raise, and it's just quite delightful.
It is pretty delightful. It also kind of makes you be like, Josh, give her a raise. Like, you sort of get the vibe already that Josh likes having her there so much that she wouldn't get to really advance, but it's still good back and forth with Josh and Donna.
It is pretty wonderful. So he walks into his office and CJ's there. And I noticed that once we got into again, I didn't look up what the beginning of the episode is, but as we were coming out of the title, the theme music, I did see guest starring Renee Estevez. You called it.
There you go.
She's right there.
Yep.
Nancy. Yep. Nancy's back for the win. Also,
yay, Nancy.
Can we just
she's
talk
really
about,
not there often.
No, she's there, but she is throughout this series. I don't know if it's
she is
kind
throughout
of like,
the whole series, yeah.
Like she didn't get a summer job somewhere, and so she's like, "Hey, Dad, can I come get a liner on the West Wing?"
Seriously,
like,
that's
I wonder
not too shabby for that though.
I wonder if she has other acting aspirations. I mean, we could look her up.
I could use the Google here.
Ask IMDb
I'm
what's
on
going on. Also, can we just talk about for a second that this is only episode 3, and so we still have that kind of MIDI sounding theme music.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
I think so, but also the intro is a smidge different. Maybe it's my imagination.
Exactly.
But the intro, that's what you're talking about, is the intro?
Yes. Yeah, it sounds like a MIDI, like a keyboard, the sound that you get from a really cheap keyboard that's programmed. Like, they didn't want to spend the money to have it orchestrated until they knew it was going to be picked up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I made a note of that as well.
It sounds like a Nintendo game.
Here's an update. Renee Estevez she's been in MacGyver. She was in Lethal Weapon. She played the underage hooker, uncredited. She was in an episode of Growing Pains, After School Specials. So she's been around.
Wait a minute. She was she played a hooker?
Yeah, she played an underage hooker, uncredited, in Lethal Weapon.
Wait a minute. What does that mean if she was uncredited? It's on her IMDb page. So somebody
else... Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe she wasn't credited in the actual film, but they credited her to her on here.
Do you think that somebody else credited that to her as, like, a joke? Like, she was never really in it, and her friends are like, we're just going to put that on there so that way when people, perhaps want to, like, go on a date with her and they look her up. Man.
If I had actress friends, I would absolutely be doing that.
Well, I'm glad I haven't given you access to my IMDb page, Sally.
So she's been in a lot. The West Wing was really sort of the last thing she did. She was in, look at that. She was in the movie The Way in 2010.
Am I supposed to know what that is?
Yes, shockingly enough, it starred Martin Sheen and was, I believe it was written and directed by Emilio Estevez. So
no way! There's so much Estevez going on there.
There's a lot of Estevez going on there. So there's our little background on Renee Estevez, aka Nancy.
Nancy
in The West Wing.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, what else happens in this episode? Let's get back to the TikTok. So, this one...
I think the major storyline is the military action. Is the president deciding about... Well, the major theme of this episode is just everybody being mad at everybody. There are tons of... I think the military thing is the main storyline, but there are tons of arguments between... I mean, we've got Josh and CJ arguing. We have Sam and CJ arguing. The president's mad at everybody. And on top of that, it rains throughout the whole episode. So it's a very...
Even the environment is mad at everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very... I literally wrote down that it was a rainy episode. In actual weather and in everybody's attitudes.
Maybe that's why I liked it.
Just not happy.
It was kind of melancholic, and I like those types of things. Yes.
Yeah, it definitely was.
So Sam's in trouble because CJ found out that he was withholding this, his friendship with this questionable
call girl.
Woman of questionable means, to give a little...
The morally upstanding call girl, which I love that Sam's trying to fix her, even though homegirl is already in law school. Like,
yeah, she's making
other than being a call girl, she's not, like, being too terrible. Like, she's already on a good path here. She's in law school, other than the call girl situation.
Yeah, minor detail. So Sam's in trouble with CJ because she's supposed to be his first call, his first line of defense. And so they have some heated, they have some conversations. I love when Toby and Josh are doing the walk and talk, and Toby's like, how did I get into trouble? And Josh is like, today all you had to do was get out of bed. And sometimes that's just how you feel.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's true.
Absolutely.
I love that when Bartlett comes in and he's kind of on a rampage and he's got a lot to do, and he's got decisions to make, and he can't find his glasses, and Mrs. Landingham, he keeps yelling at her to, like, find his glasses. And wouldn't that be nice to have someone whose only job it is to, like, find your missing objects?
Absolutely.
It's like she's Siri.
It would be pretty wonderful, yeah.
Meets Tile. Have you seen those Tile things?
I have not, no.
Oh, they're great. You can just attach them to, like, your keys or your
wallet.
Yes,
I have. Yes. I have seen those. I need that in my life, for sure.
I mean, they're not... Or
Mrs. Landingham. Either way.
I think I would take Mrs. Landingham, although I think Tile is easier to transport.
Yeah. Probably so.
They're not our sponsor, but I'd be open to it. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Also, this was also a very minute... detail observation, but during this tirade when he's like trying to make decisions or whatever, he's trying to check to see what time it is, which is what prompts him to also ask again where his glasses are. And there's no way that that's a digital watch. And can we just talk about digital watches for a second? Because I feel like people who don't wear digital clocks, like, they're just trying to prove that they're smart. Because honestly, it is never faster to try to figure out what hand is on what number.
Well, in the digital age, I mean, I wear an analog watch, but because I don't actually, it's just there for looks. Really, I mean, we have our phones at our fingertips anytime. So yeah, I rarely ever actually look at my watch for the time anyway.
And you have it on the analog, the analog clock face because it has a certain look and prestige to it. I feel like the president is not allowed to have a digital watch, even though it would save him time, and he doesn't have much time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Okay.
Agreed. Speaking of other little things, well, not little things, but one of my favorite Josh lines in this episode is when he walks into his office and CJ is already there, which that whole people being in his office thing is funny throughout. But when CJ's already there and she's like, a call girl, Josh? A call girl? And he's like, you're not asking me if I'd like a call girl, are you? That is just one of my favorite Josh lines. Which is so Josh to take this moment of like anger and seriousness and flip it around real fast.
Yeah, he's a great diffuser.
Yes, absolutely.
Get him some essential oils, and he'll just be all throughout your house.
Although CJ and Josh's hair are both pretty bad in this episode. CJ's hair was a lot worse yesterday. It's not even that it's bad. It's just, speaking of dated things, it's very 90s, and it gets so much better.
Oh,
I just adore CJ.
so much better. I mean,
Yeah.
the pantsuits right now are all kind of like light and pastel, which they're pantsuits to begin with, so they're already like pretty passe. So everybody
Right.
does look a lot better. It's like life, you know? You look back at your middle school years and you're like, ooh, that was rough. And now you're like,
Absolutely.
I'm in high school. I can get, you know, jeans with the whiskering on it, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like
So, yes, it's exactly like that. Yeah.
that.
I also love how CJ just deals with the boys in every episode, just goes toe to toe with them. And is there to be the voice of reason about things they're not thinking about when she has the line about that is what matters on hard copy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
CJ's just the best. She's just to go toe to toe with them and hold her own with them. It's always fun to watch her do that.
Yeah. And I liked the scene where she's arguing with Sam about the fact that he needs to tell her anytime anything like this happens, and like what were you thinking? Like Sam is really digging his heels in on this issue.
Yeah.
He's wanting the system to be held to uh, a higher standard in terms of like what the reality of the situation is versus the perception of it. He doesn't like being held to a higher expectation just based on what it looks like. He
Right.
wants to be held to what it actually is, which is, you know, an honorable, non-illegal friendship with this woman. I love that when CJ and Sam are arguing, though, they both have a moment where they're arguing over grammar. Which is great because Sam's a speechwriter and he says 3 words that mean the same thing. And then, of
Right.
course,
Yes, I love that moment.
in wonderful parallel structure, CJ does the same thing. And it's delightful. If you like words, then you'll love Sorkin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very fun little parallel moment. I guess I sort of took over the TikTok there, but I think we're done because there really wasn't much plotline other than this. There's Sam and the call girl and the military action, really, and a lot of arguing.
Yes, and a lot of arguing. But we do meet some new characters.
We meet 2 new characters, maybe more, but there's only 2 I care about.
Okay, who's the first? Oh,
the
yes.
first,
I know who
obviously, is Charlie Young.
Charlie Young. Is that who you named your dog after?
I wish that it was. Sadly, Charlie, my dog, was named after the Mighty Ducks.
Also
but is still another Estevez tie. But yeah,
is that his middle name?
Estevez.
Is it Charlie
It should
Estevez?
be Charlie Estevez. That's what it should be. Absolutely. But then I watched The West Wing after I'd already gotten Charlie. So now it's just like a backup namesake. Like I would have named him after this Charlie anyway, so that works out well. And it's funny that my favorite character on the other Sorkin drama on The Newsroom is also named Charlie. Sorkin must like that Charlie name.
It's a strong Charlie name.
It is, because it's like an endearing name. It's like Charlie's your bud, you know?
Yeah, Charlie's the one with the chocolate factory that lets you come over and hang out with Johnny Depp. that movie was weird.
It was really
I loved Josh in the interview scene with Charlie. He just walks in, he's talking about, you know, he's having Donna get him lunch and he's going on about bottled water.
Which, there Donna brings him a bottled water, so let's, I'm just gonna keep going with this whole, like, really did Donna not bring him coffee thing, because Donna brought him bottled water in this episode, so let's just let that go unknown.
She wants to upgrade in her job. She's got to do the little things first, and I feel like that's a life lesson.
Now she'll bring him coffee, yeah.
But he walks in, and he's so nonchalant in this scenario, and Charlie just has no idea what's going on, and Josh walks in, and he says, "I'm supposed to vet you." You know, and he's got all of these, like, sideways glances as he's looking up at Charlie, and he's just so cute. I just love his whole demeanor in this whole scene is very...
Absolutely.
Hashtag Lyman for boyfriend 2015. It's so delightful. But can you imagine that? You're going in to apply for a messenger job, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're Charlie. And then they're like, no, we want to pick you to be the personal aide to the president. Like, what do you think that's like?
Well, I love the whole storyline about, he was coming in to be the messenger, but I really do get confused when he, protests again and again and again. I really sort of am trying to envision what exactly his... Because you would think, once you hear, okay, yeah, you did apply for that, but we want you to be the personal aide, any really normally minded person would be like, oh my gosh, yeah, okay, I don't know, or maybe not. Maybe it's just that that's too much work. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what his hesitation is, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Is he scared of the job? Because I think a little hesitation would have been cute, but Charlie really is like, no.
He's really slow on the uptake.
No. Yeah.
And not on the uptake, on getting on board with the whole idea of it, which I'm sure it would be kind of a shock. Maybe it was because he thought
maybe
that
that's it.
He would have to be away from his sister more.
Well, and I actually wrote that down too because, here's Charlie saying, oh, I'm not in college because I'm taking care of my sister. And one of Josh's lines is like, you'll be working really crazy long hours.
20 hours
you'll be traveling at the drop of a hat and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, so who's taking care of the sister?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Was that just to make him seem likable? But how...
Probably
so endearing. In this, there's so much pathos in this episode. You just feel for Charlie.
He's absolutely endearing is just the best word, and he really just feels like your bud, your friend, your pal Charlie.
And his character develops a lot. He's got some great plot lines throughout the series, and love interests and. Things like that. And humor. This first episode, he's just very... I mean, there's so much more to him.
He's really, really great at the humor. He does a great job. He and Martin Sheen sort of work off of each other perfectly, which his humor is not surprising because I had seen him in Psych before I watched... Psych is pretty much... I feel like it's a rule that Psych is on some channel all the time, or on USA. I feel like it's always on when I turn on the TV.
Yeah, it is.
And I'd seen it a couple times with him in it, and of course he and the other guy, Sean, their chemistry, their humor on Psych is what is funny about it, and so that's what I knew him from going in, and so I was sort of expecting a little bit of that wit, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah, I think there's an episode on Psych where he tap dances, and I think my parents asked me if I've seen that episode 100,000 times because
really?
I'm a tap dancer. Yes,
it's funny you said that. That was literally just on the other morning.
Yeah, well, it was on USA. I mean, because there you go.
Yep, it's one of the few episodes that I have seen, so that's funny. I feel like there's a West Wing reference. I can't remember. I'm sure there are probably many references in Psych, but I feel like I was watching once and heard one, but I can't remember what that would have been. But I do remember the West Wing. Another of my faves is Parks and Recreation, obviously, and they have a whole episode where Bradley Whitford comes in and does a walk and talk, which was really, really fun.
I love when your friends become friends with your other friends. And I mean that in terms of television shows as well.
Right, in terms of people I don't actually know at all is what I mean by that.
Characters, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another character that we meet in this episode is drumroll
Danny Kincannon. I skipped the drum roll. I'm sorry.
Can you do that?
I got too excited.
I can't. If somebody said make a drum roll, I'd be like, "Where are my tap shoes?" I can't do the thing with
I can't make a sound. Drum roll.
Danny Kincannon.
Yes. Danny Kincannon is standing outside of CJ's door and is the first reporter to sort of catch wind of this Sam and call girl story. And we pretty immediately get a sense of Danny and CJ's... Well, you just sense that their relationship is different at this point. That it feels more, not even intimate, but they feel closer than she and other reporters that we've seen.
Well, yeah, he's doing the lean. I mean, he's like sulking in her. He's hanging out in her doorway, and he's doing the lean. So he owns that space.
Absolutely.
But yes, more to come. But they set it up straight away. So it's an interesting ride. And
you like Danny straight away because the first thing he's doing is being like, hey, like, I have this story. I'm going to have to report it if I get more, but, like, I want to let you know. You just like, he seems, he's got integrity. You just immediately like him. Or maybe I just immediately like him.
No, I think, I feel like that's universal. I think the
Yeah.
only people who wouldn't like him are people who are jealous because they want to be him.
That makes sense.
Also, have you ever seen the movie Sneakers with Dan Aykroyd and Robert Redford?
I cannot say that I have, no.
You might be too young. It might have been in the 90s. I think it was.
1992. I used the Google again.
Wow, you're fast. You're like lightning. But Danny was actually in Sneakers.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was a bad guy. He was like a spy. And
Timothy Busfield is Danny's real name.
There you go.
For our listeners. We just like to provide as much up-to-date information as possible.
So you can follow your favorite stars and find them. We should probably say if people are on Twitter as well, because there are a good number of West Wingers who are on the Twitter.
I'll get right on that.
Yeah. I love when there's a moment when, so they've decided to take some military action, and this is the first military action in Bartlett's presidency. So everybody's kind of up in a tizzy, getting their work prepared and writing speeches, and I don't know what everybody else is doing. I mean, I can understand the speechwriters being busy, and I love that Josh is just standing there. He's like, I'm a writer on a movie set. I've got nothing to do.
There are a couple moments in the military timeline that I wrote about. One of the first being, it was a great setup when we're first, I think this is the first time we see the Situation Room. I could be wrong, but we come into the Situation Room.
Yeah.
And Fitz Wallace is talking to somebody else, and he says something like, you know what, I was just thinking, this isn't our normal coffee. And it's the complete opposite. I mean, they're in the Situation Room talking about military action, and they're talking about coffee, and this is how casual it is to them. And it's totally the opposite of how Bartlett feels. And I just love that. It's a tiny moment. It's one line, and you're just like, oh, we're just chatting about coffee in the Situation Room where we could, like, take over the world. It's fine. So I really like that moment.
There was so much great struggle in that scene. And it was between Bartlett and his own reluctance to just play along with convention of the proportional or proportionate response.
Yeah.
And so here's his team of military personnel experts of what to do, and they're trying to outline for him and actually lead him because they have more experience than he does as the president. Right. And he's just struggling with the whole idea of going along with, well, you do this and then we do that. And then Leo is trying to kind of negotiate this struggle within Bartlett. Leo is really trying to bring him into the role that he has been elected for. You are the commander in chief and you need to, this is going to make it real.
Right. The thing that I love about that scene, and there's a scene later where Leo and the president are talking. There, in those two scenes, the debate is so well done that I'm sort of like, I find myself on both sides. Like every time Bartlett would start talking about what is the virtue of a proportional response, I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, let's go get him. And then the Joint Chiefs start talking and I'm like, oh, okay, you're probably right. Like, let's do that. And I do the same thing later in Leo and the president's conversation when Leo is trying to calm him down, which that scene has one of my favorite monologues probably in the whole series when he talks about the Roman citizens could walk around unharmed.
Yeah.
But in that scene, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I'm with President Bartlett, and then Leo starts talking, and I'm like, oh no, Leo's probably right.
Yeah.
So that's a fun thing, really.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I made a note about Bartlett's little monologues that he does, because he does so many throughout this series, and it's all, anytime he starts with "Did you know?" I just kind of stop and wonder, what is Aaron Sorkin reading, where he has all of these little anecdotes, or they're, I don't even know if any of them are true or if all of them are true,
Right.
But like, what does Aaron Sorkin watch? That's what I'd like to know. What is he
That,
reading?
that is a very good question, I think. We should, Aaron, if you're listening,
Give
let
a
us
give a
know.
holler, give a holler.
Tweet us.
Because
We're around.
you'd have to imagine that he can't just sit down. Like, no offense, but he's probably not watching anything on the CW.
No. Oh, no offense taken. No offense taken by me. Now, if the president of the CW is listening, that might be another situation. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because to be putting out such, as a writer, the best writers are really great readers, and you're taking in a lot of media as well. And so I do wonder what he's taking in to spit out all of this brilliance. Brilliance might be. No, brilliance is the right word.
Would it be too much? Would it be too much to say that he's like the Shakespeare of television screenwriting?
Maybe like a smidge. What's so strange is that he's so good at playing with, pulling on your heartstrings and playing with your emotions. Like, you're listening to this Roman citizen speech that you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the best ever. And it is in those moments. I mean, I think Aaron Sorkin is brilliant, but I still think he has his downfalls too. So
okay, well, I'm sure Shakespeare did too.
That's true. To be fair, I think that's probably.
I feel like Romeo and Juliet, like that, they didn't really have to both die. That was just like, it was pretty close in timing in terms of the end and who drank what poison and who stabbed themselves. I mean, to me, that's kind of, it's kind of like the equivalent of Titanic and The Door. It's like that could have easily been avoided.
We can't even talk about that.
I know.
We can't even talk about it.
But I'm just saying, they all have their downfalls. You're right.
Yeah.
What else here? I think Leo, and we'll pick.
Sorry, you go ahead. I had a thought, but I'll hold on to it. So
go. Let that thought fly, Sallie.
Well, my thought was that we completely forgot about Toby's tiny storyline here with the guy who says that his town's going to kill the president. Okay. And Toby is just so funny, like not leaking to the press, but saying like, brilliant. Toby's just he really is that. I can't remember I think you used a phrase. He just really feels strongly about justice. Yes. And he is not okay that this happened, and he is going to act on it. And that was just hilarious to me.
I love it and it's so interesting, and you see this in probably every episode, and it's something that I was not really attuned to before watching the show, is that the way the media affects policy, kind of, and the way that the West Wing and the administration can affect just public perception. Just right. The fact that he like created the story, like his hands were tied in terms of actually bringing this dude in. There was a guy who spoke against Bartlett, saying that if he ever shows up in my district, like, we'll kill him, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so
he won't make it out alive.
Toby wants to go on a rampage and like have this guy brought in for treason. And when they said, that's probably not a good idea, so let's not do that.
That entire scene is really my favorite. I wanted to record it and play it, but it is the funniest thing, because Josh says something like, yeah, because what good is it being in power if you can't drag your enemies in for questioning? And they keep telling Toby not to take the bait, and Toby's like, and somebody says, like, if only there were a law against it. And Toby's like, well, let's see, treason? And like lists all of these laws.
Conspiracy?
And that whole thing, and then he immediately goes out and says that line to the press. And my favorite thing he says afterwards is, he's like, damn, I gotta go back to my office. And it's the most sarcastic. He's so funny. Richard Schiff just did that line so well. It's a prime example of his dry, just perfect wit.
Yeah, he doesn't need to like shout and make you like, look over here. It's like, you just pay attention.
It's not a Josh Lyman situation.
Yeah. Donna. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting that he just walks down the hallway, talks to the press, tries to make it seem very casual, and I think successfully, and just tips a little domino, and that creates he still gets out the message that he wanted to
Yeah.
without
And then
actually
it's a
doing
story.
anything.
Without doing anything. It's very smart. It's a very smart move on his part because he doesn't really do anything he can get in trouble for either. So kudos to Toby for handling that one. And then because it's funny that even in the end when Leo mentions it to the president, he's like, Jed Bartlett's like, oh, Ziegler must be ballistic right now. So like everybody knows how Toby is going to react to this news.
Oh man, so good. I love, and I feel like in terms of an MVP, I'm not going to officially pick yet. I want to hear what your pick is, but I did want to mention that Leo really shines in a lot of scenes in this episode because of the way that he kind of reins in Bartlett and also just he helps him snap out of his like terrible mood. I mean, when Charlie comes in to meet the president for the first time, granted, Josh, that's probably not a good time to like introduce the new kid to his boss.
Yeah, Josh should have known better in that moment. That's what I was thinking. Not even introduce him, but to get him to say that to the president when the president's clearly distraught. I was like, come on, Josh, you just set the kid up for failure.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I get where he wanted to like show like, hey, his like first 5 minutes on the job and he's already kind of paying attention. He's going to be a good fit. But Charlie had to have gotten to the point quicker. He couldn't have just been like, President, he should have just been like, hey, check your study. That's where you were there last, you know?
Right.
To find your glasses. So, but I felt so bad when Bartlett like snapped at Charlie.
I know. It is pretty terrible. But then it makes his redemptive scene all that much better because the look on Charlie's face is really pretty heartbreaking. But then afterwards, obviously my favorite part of the episode is Charlie at the end saying, I've never felt like this before. Mm-hmm. Because you really, I mean, you sort of feel like Charlie, like you're just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Mm-hmm. So it's very fun.
Yeah. Well, before we pick like an MVP here, as we kind of wrap up this lovely episode, there was another Mandy moment. She's there and she comes into Josh. She's in Josh's office. Just again that parallel structure where with CJ already being in there and Donna not telling him.
Yes.
But Mandy brings Josh a present, and her present is a picture of them together, and she had like drawn like devil horns on him or something. And I just think that is the weirdest thing ever. Like,
it's the weirdest thing ever.
Would you bring your ex-boyfriend a picture of you two together and a picture that you would, like, in what world would you do that?
I don't know. But also what was weird to me was that they said it was from the first night they met. And if you actually look at the picture, they're pretty chummy there. Like, that looks like they've been together a while. So that whole scene was odd. But this episode, I feel like, is sort of the beginning of, like, toning Mandy down a smidge. She's not as I still cannot stand her, but she's not as psycho Mandy as she was in the first two. So at least there's that. She only takes up one of our precious scenes.
And I do like her as a device to show that Josh likes feisty women. He likes women that will give him a run for his money, that are a little bit mean, but really, like, they can just hang in there with him. Yeah. He's not going to be with some, like, Susie, like, pushover.
Absolutely. Also, right before we pick an MVP, just the scene with, well, first of all, President Bartlett has so many great lines and so many great, his monologues are wonderful, but like he has so many good moments. Like when he walks out and says $50 crime, I honestly don't know what the hell we're doing here, because he's equating, like he's like, how are we not doing it? That's one of my favorite lines too. And of course the Roman citizen thing, and Leo's line about, of course it's not good. There is no good. It's what there is. And he says something about, it's what our fathers taught us. It's just what there is. But I do wonder, like, really, is there no different scenario between bombing unoccupied buildings and bombing an airport? Like, we went from, oh, these are probably abandoned, to let's blow up an airport where there are thousands of people. Like,
well, granted, Bartlett was kind of I mean, he wanted something that was a disproportional response. You know, like he was overreacting, and so they were giving him what he asked for. You know, and there's more than one occasion where Bartlett does get on some sort of emotional, like, hey, it's Christmas Eve, but I really want to like completely change the budget. You know, and the staff has to like give in to his beck and call, even though they know that it's not gonna see the light of day, and they still have to do it.
I almost wonder if it's Wallace sort of put that option together, or everybody put that option together to be like, because really there had to have been something in between, but put that together to be like, hey, let's really think about what you're doing. Like, this is what this would look like.
Yeah.
Just to let him take a step back. So that was
I think they did, and I think they were successful in that. That's got to be weird though, because you know, even as a politician, you know, you're probably, and you were elected to this job, you know, the people think that you can do it, or at least an overwhelming number of people think that you can do this job. But I can't imagine that moment where you have to cross over into being this world leader, and you have to have your first, you know, military action. I don't care who you are or what party you're in, or, you know, but that's got to be real. Just saying.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So, MVP time?
MVP. Who's your pick for this episode?
I really had a hard time because I wanted to pick Charlie just because he's Charlie and he comes into the episode and all he has to do is arrive. And because I never get tired of people meeting the president. Every time, there's so many moments where somebody gets to meet the president unexpectedly, and that is always a fun moment for me to watch. Throughout the series, people are constantly meeting the president. And I love people's reactions to that because that's how it would really be. So I wanted to pick Charlie, but really I had to go with Leo because he pretty much saves the world and goes unnoticed once again. He's so good at balancing out the president. Only he and Abby can really speak to the president like that, who we still haven't met.
I know. It'll happen.
Beginning to think this first lady doesn't exist.
I know. Everyone's really busy, but she exists, and man, there's so much more to come.
Yeah. So who's your MVP?
I think I think it's gonna have to be Leo for me as well. Yeah. He wasn't like, you know, it's hard for me to give the MVP to anyone other than Josh because I just want to give him an MVP for existing because he's so charming and he had a lot of great humor. But I also loved Toby, his thing again. But I do think Leo, he saved the day in this episode.
I agree. Yep.
So here's a point for Leo. Yay, Leo!
Congratulations, Leo.
No spoilers here. Okay, well, I feel like that was a very good recap of this third episode, a proportional response, or
proportionate if you just feel like switching it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to look up the rules because I feel like I do better.
There really is no rule. I think proportional has more to do with like if you're dealing with a quantitative substance. Like I could go off on this, but there really is not much difference. So I'm gonna say proportionate.
Oh man, well. I feel like that was a proportional podcast for this episode 3.
Oh, I agree.
And I'm looking forward to episode 4. Do we know the name of episode 4?
I bet Google does.
Nah, that's all right.
I don't know.
We'll find out when we get there, but we keep getting some new characters and some things that are developing along the way, and it's just getting better and better. So we'll see you on the next episode 4. Episode 4.
Episode 4. 5 votes
down. Yes.
Yep.
All right. Well,
can't wait.
We'll see y'all very soon.
All right.
Not literally because we don't see you, but
it's just our voices too.
But we're with you. On the wing.
Figuratively.
On the wing. All right. Yep. See ya.